Hi and welcome to this video about Phaseplant, a modular synth for the 21st century. Quite apart from the different methods of synthesis, subtractive, FM, additive, granular, wavetable, etc., synthesis generally fall into two camps, those who are into modular and those who are not. Fixed architecture synths will often cater for more complex patches with the aid of a modulation matrix. But for the adventurous who crave truly original sounds, or who want the freedom to route signals and modulations to their own specifications, modular seeks to satisfy their needs. Of course, modular synthesis is nothing new. Early synth pioneers such as Tomita and Wendy Carlos relied on modular Moogs, which first appeared in the mid-60s, for their early recordings. And it wasn't until the release of the Mini Moog in the 1970s that a fixed format synth was released to the world. The architecture of the Mini was a winning formula that brought a more streamlined and portable approach to a wider market, but by its very nature, it was less powerful than earlier modular synths. My first modular was a Roland System 100M, for which I part-exchanged my Mini Moog in the early 80s. By the late 90s, I was using a Nord modular, which I still have, DSP-based, with all the routing and patching flexibility of modular, but with the ability to create sounds on your computer screen, but more crucially, to save and recall patches instantly, a feature that's near impossible on a hardware modular. In recent years, modular synthesis has enjoyed a resurgence thanks to the Eurorack format, and a number of small and innovative manufacturers stepped up to take modular synthesis in new directions. In the world of VSTs and soft synths, simulations of those early analog modulars are available, along with Eurorack emulations, such as offerings from Softtube and VCV Rack. And being digital emulations, your carefully constructed patches can be saved away for future recall. A visiting journalist once described my System 100M as having enough wires to knit a sweater for a jumbo jet. But as we're working in the software realm, does it really make sense to have depictions of tangled wires obscuring front panel controls, when a fresh approach might make more sense? A software-based semi-modular synth that has gradually been maturing and growing in popularity over the last couple of years is Phaseplant by Kilohearts. Sound designers love it for the modular nature and the unrestricted way with which you can create your own patches. With all that power, you might be intimidated to create your own sounds, especially as when you first launch Phaseplant, you're presented with a blank canvas. And that's where this video comes in. Of course, loads of presets are provided in a variety of styles, but let me quickly create some sounds to show you just how easy it can be. Firstly, I'm going to create the synth strings patch heard in the background track. So here is that blank canvas we talked about earlier. You'll notice on the left-hand side there's a section that says generators, right for effects, and at the bottom modulators. So the first thing we'll do is we'll create an analog style oscillator. So if I click in this area here, select analog. Now what I'm going to do for the string sound, I'm going to use the unison. So the first thing I'm going to do is take down the level, try about 40%, and then I'm going to switch on the unison. And the unison mode basically is a way of thickening up the oscillators, so it sounds like we've got more oscillators than we actually have. So I'm going to set that all the way to 8. Doesn't really have much effect on the CPU. If you look at the CPU meter, whether it's set to 8 or 1 doesn't have a lot of difference. So what I'm going to do, it doesn't make a lot of difference rather. So what I'm going to do is open up the spread and adjust the attack time. And the release time. One thing I should mention straight away are the types of unison that are available. If I select where it says smooth, which is the default, if I hover over, you'll hear the different types of unison. And you can select octaves, shepherd tones, fifths, minor, minor seventh, etc. But for the purposes of creating the string type sounds, we'll leave it set to smooth. The effects section works in lanes, so you can assign different groups of effects to different oscillators or filters or what have you. So I'm just going to set up in lane 1. The first effect I'm going to put in is an ensemble. Now I love this effect. This is fantastic. At the moment it's set to 6 voices. If I set that to a sine and just basically adjust the spread and take down the mix. It creates a nice movement to the overall sound, and as the name says, it gives it an ensemble effect. After that, let's put in some reverb, and really we're done for this sound. So let's select reverb. I'm going to adjust the decay time a little bit to give me a long decay, but keep it fairly subtle in the mix. And now we have our first sound, synth strings. I'm going to create sounds for, and I almost hate to say this, a cinematic style track. I know it's the most overused description that really covers any number of styles. However, that's what I'm going with. And besides, it's going to have a long languid brass patch in it, so that's got to be cinematic, right? Anyway, for the next part, I'm going to create a soft synth pad. So for the soft pad sound, I'm going to create another analog oscillator and take the level down because, again, I'm going to be using some unison. I'll take the level down to about 60% this time, and I'm going to switch on unison, set it to, just leave it on 4 times, and we'll give it a little bit of spread to open the sound up in the stereo field. Okay, now the first sound we're going to, well, it's going to be a pad, so let's adjust the attack time and the release time. And we're going to need a filter to remove those high frequencies. So let's add a filter. Click here and select filter. Now then, because an output gets created automatically when you create an oscillator, we need to insert the filter after the oscillator and before the output. So I need to get hold of the filter, pick it up, and put it there like so. And now that filter is working as expected on the sound. You have a variety of slopes. Obviously for a 12 dB, well, that's a slope of 1. That's, I think I'm right in saying, I think times 4 is a 24 dB. So maybe it's a 6 dB filter, I'm not sure, but you get the 1 times slope is quite a nice filter for pads. So what we need now is an envelope to control the filter. So I go into the modulator section, click down here, select envelope, and let's again adjust the attack time. Give us a slow attack and adjust the release time. Let's see what we've got now. Right, now that envelope is not yet assigned to the filter, so I need to click the plus symbol and choose where I want to assign it to. So I want to assign, I've got all these choices. I'm going to assign it to, obviously, the cutoff of the filter. So I'm going to select here and just dial in an amount. Now, these all stay on the screen. I can choose to, for example, adjust the, well, say the pitch of the oscillator if I wanted to. But for now, I just want to open and close the filter with this envelope. So I'm going to click off. So we saw the filter opening up. That's the effects of the oscillator. And we're pretty close to how I want the sound to be. But of course, pads are all about movement. So let's add an LFO. And we'll assign that an LFO as well to control the cutoff. So if I click the plus symbol again, you'll notice that a star has now appeared underneath the cutoff because we've already assigned a modulation to it. So I'm going to click on the star, and now it's going to let me sort of dial in an amount. So I'm going to put, say, 20%. And now with the LFO, when I play, is opening and closing the filter. But we want a much more subtle effect than that, so I'm going to click off, and we're going to adjust this down just to a few percent, and then reduce the speed. So I'm going to take the speed down to something like this, and then there'll just be gentle movement of the filter as we go along. Now, if you want to change it from unipolar to bipolar, or indeed invert it, you can do so from here. But for now, that's absolutely fine. Let's create some chorus just to thicken the sound out a wee bit, and some reverb. So I'll select reverb underneath, chorus, slow down the delay time, a bit more depth, reduce the rate. It's about right. And reverb, let's again increase the decay time and just a little bit more of it in the mix. And there we have our soft pad with a bit of movement. Again, we've only used one oscillator, but set to unison, we get a lovely warm, full effect. And using the spread, it spreads it across the stereo field. So let's create that brass patch that I talked about earlier. So I'm going to use two oscillators this time. Again, I'm just using the analog oscillators. We will cover more some of the other options as I go along. So I'm going to select two of them, and you'll see it's also, I need to move that oscillator up so that it's feeding through the same output. Those two are being added together and fed through the output. I'm going to need a filter, so again I'll select filter, and I'll put that in the correct part of the signal chain. So I've got two analog oscillators being added together, going into the filter, and then to the output. So that's how easy it is really to organize the routing. I want the two analog style oscillators to be drifting apart ever so slightly. So I'm going to select unison for this one, but just make it ×2. And we'll have a little bit of spread. Detune seems to be set to the right sort of amount. And let me open up that filter for now. And on the second oscillator, I'm not going to select unison. I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm going to take the level down of both of them though. So I'll have that to about 54% there. And this one I'm going to also reduce, because we're adding the two together. I don't want too strong a signal, but I'm going to detune it. So I'm going to go to the synth figure, and that's got them detuned from one another, but we're going to add LFO as well. So with the filter, I'm going to take the cutoff down, because the filter is really going to control the overall sound that we hear. So I'll set it about there for now, and create an envelope for the filter. So you know the routine now. You click on the plus symbol, you select where you want to modulate, and let's give this a lot of modulation. Let's take it to about 75% now. And we want to have a slow attack for the brass sound, and we want a long release. Try something like this. That sounds pretty good to me. Let's adjust the release of the amplifier. That sounds pretty good. So now we'll start assigning an LFO for a bit of movement. So I'll add the LFO, and we'll assign it to both the oscillators. Let's select the plus symbol, and we'll go to the set that to try figure there of about 10%, and we'll do the same thing. Instead of doing it to semitones, let's do it to shift, frequency shift. I don't know if it's going to make any difference, but we'll soon find out. So there we are with our full range LFO. Let's narrow the range down. So we've set our values, but we can adjust the rate at which the amount at which it modulates the pitch. Like so. So I'm going to tweak the LFO now to give us the right sort of. the right sort of amount. I think we want to need that even less. Right, I'll take these down even less as well. And we're getting close. Right, so all we need is a generous helping of reverb, I think. So let's select reverb once more. This time we won't hold back on the decay time, and we'll go large on the size, and we'll increase the mix, and we should have a decent enough brass sound. A bit too generous in the reverb, but I'm going to go and tweak this ever so slightly. So my slightly tweaked sound sounds like so. Time to move on to the next sound. So now I'm going to create a bell-like tone to complement the melody, and if I go in and select Wavetable, the extra harmonics that are available in the Wavetable are going to be more suitable for a bell type sound. So let's click where it says default Wavetable, and I want something with plenty of frequencies in it, so I'm going to select spectral waveform, and we'll just pick one of these. They'll all probably give us bell-like tones. And now we can choose, I'll just give the sound a lot of release. I'll take the level down again, and I'll choose a point on the three-dimensional waveform here. It gives us a bell-like tone, so I want the extra harmonics getting smoother here. I want the bell-like tones round about the 100 mark. There we go. Now that's not quite good enough yet, so let's adjust the we need a bit of sort of to recreate the vibrations of a bell, so let's set up a LFO. So I'm going to set this for some fast vibration, and we're going to route that to the wavetable position, to the frame, like so. We're getting closer, but we're not quite there yet. So let's have a bit more release. Take the sustain off. Add a bit of decay. Right, now I still want more harmonics, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the unison mode, and I'm going to select harmonics. There it is, down there. Let's dial in. Six sounds about right. We'll spread it out. And that's a reasonable bell-like tone, so I'll just add some delay to that. Quite a nice delay unit in here. There's a ping-pong setting, as well as ducking, which is can be quite important if you've got so the delays don't mask the original sound. There we go. We'll add some reverb to that, and we're virtually there. So we'll put some reverb after that. I could put reverb on lane 2, because what happens is that lane 1 is sending into lane 2, which in turn is sending into lane 3. If you've got a complex patch, which we'll look at later on, you can set different oscillators to feed different effects. So it doesn't really matter where the reverb goes in this case, because it's going straight from lane 1 into lane 2. But to illustrate the point, let's increase the mix again, and the decay, and with a reasonable bell-like tone. So what I'm going to do now is create a sort of a drum ensemble sound. I've got a sample that I've called War Drum, and so I'm going to load up the sampler engine and drag in a war drum sample into here and adjust the release time. So instead of getting that, I get a more percussive effect. Now what I'm going to do now is create a second sampler, but I want to process it separately from the other one. So I'm going to add another output so that they can be processed separately. And I'm going to send the first one to lane 1 and the second one I'm going to send to lane 2. So let's drag the same sample war drum in. And what I'm going to do to make it sufficiently different, let's mute this one for now. I'm going to pitch this one down. Add together the other one for quite a big sound. I'm going to pan this one partly left and this one partly right. And now I'm going to put some effects on. So I just don't want to put any reverb on because it's going to sound ridiculously huge. So what I'm going to use, surprisingly, is the ensemble effect, because there is a preset in here. So if I select this down icon and go to the presets, I can select, what was it called? Unsettling effect, I think it was called. That's the one. And what it does is basically takes, detunes the samples, moves them around throughout the stereo field, as you can see, and by spreading them out. And I've got the full mix going. So I'll do the same thing to the other lane. So I'm going to go to ensemble again. Set it to, well, let's go straight to the preset and select unsettling effect, and now they're both should give us more of an ensemble type effect. So already we've got a really big sound for the drums. Once I added the drum and percussion parts, it started to have a sort of military feel. So what I wanted to do is add some effects like wind noise and distant explosions to back that up. So what I'm going to do now is show you how the wind was created. So very simple. I'm just going to go to the noise section, but I'm going to use a non-linear filter in this lane, which is actually down as an effect. It accurately mimics an analog style filter. So what I'm going to do is give it a bit of resonance for wind noise, and to make it random, I'm going to select a random generator down here, which is similar to an LFO, but it's generating like a sample and hold signal. So I'm going to click the plus, assign that to the cutoff, and you can see now that the cutoff is jumping around in a random fashion. So that won't give us a very accurate wind sound. So let's adjust smooth, and we should now be adjusting the filter, which we are, smoothly. So I'm going to take the level down because I know this is going to be quite loud. So there's the effect, but we've got a lot of bottom end there. So I'm going to select Slice EQ, which is a great way of cutting out individual frequencies from the signals. So I'm going to select Anti-Subsonics and adjust the offset so that so we get more of that wind noise. Let's adjust the release time. We'll have the attack slow, so it comes in. I'll adjust the amount of random. We're getting pretty close. All we need to do is add a reverb, and I think we'll be there. So I'll just see what we've got now. Yep, that's good enough for me. I'll just have it come in slow, a little bit more slowly, and fade out a little bit more slowly. For the explosions in the distance, I just took a factory sample called Rumble, and adjusted the ADSR like so, but I just wanted to adjust its random, set a random value rather to the panning position, so that each time the note was triggered, it'll be in a different place in the stereo field. So quite a straightforward sound, just using a factory preset, a factory sample rather, called Rumble. So before I play the end result, I want to break down the drone sounds that you heard earlier in the background music. This is the sort of complex sound that Phaseplant excels at. So what we have going on here is that we've had plenty of LFOs and lots of modulation going on. So the first two oscillators are wavetables. You can see that they're being modulated by the LFOs. Similarly, the sync value of the analog style oscillator is being modulated by one of the LFOs. I think I've also got, I've got some random going on as well. And if we have a look at the filter, you'll see that the filter cutoff is also being modulated by an LFO to give a bit of movement in the sound. That's all being processed through a chorus, then my favourite effect, the ensemble, which is spreading it out, and a delay and a reverb all on top of one another, and that gives us the quite rich sound. That's from a single note. Now there's a very similar patch that I also created, which is called wavetabling. And again, I used that in the background music before. This has got a massive ensemble section made up of 14 voices, and I've made use of the lanes. So everything is being sent to lane 3. Each lane is being sent finally through the ensemble and then the filter. But this is quite a complex patch. So each wavetable, this particular wavetable, let's have a listen to it first. This wavetable has its own filter, as does this wavetable, and you can see that the filters have assigned movement to the filters, movement to the wavetables. There you can basically keep adding on LFOs or random amounts as you wish. I've even got 2 filters on this last sound. So gentle movement on this wavetable, but a low pass and a high pass filter going at the same time, just to give plenty of movement. And of course ensemble gives it even more movement, so this is a very sort of rich, pad that only wavetables really can create. And certainly with all this modulation, only a modular approach such as that taken by Phaseplant makes it straightforward and easy to do. So let's take a listen to the finished track. Everything you're hearing is pure Phaseplant. There's no external EQ, there is no external effects. It's just literally multiple examples of Phaseplant. There's only one sound that I actually missed out, and that's this little stabby sound, so I'll very quickly show you that one. I've taken, rather than modulating these wavetables, I've just taken a static point in a brass wavetable and woodwinds wavetable, along with a sample of, a bowed violin, just to give it a sort of a more sort of an orchestral feel. And there's a little stab that's going along with the percussion. You'll hear it in the piece. And again, I've set ensemble to 16 voices and plenty of spread to spread it out, and a touch of reverb. So let's now listen to the end result of all the tracks that you heard me, all the sounds rather that you heard me create. So I hope that gives you an idea as to the power and flexibility of Phaseplant, but also an insight into how straightforward creating your own sounds for it can be. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, it's free, and you'll be notified of future releases if you select the bell icon. So until the next video, thanks for watching.